Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the 2021 inductees for the National Coalition of Black Women, Northern Virginia chapter, we would like to thank each one of you for your participation tonight. The journey thus far has truly been an honor and a privilege. I am blessed to be working alongside some phenomenal Black women. Our team is excited to share our service project with you. We are hopeful that this town hall meeting will equip you with essential information concerning the nominees for the governor of Virginia. We trust that these segments will address your concerns regarding their proposed plans, policies, and initiatives in the areas of education, economic empowerment, political, and health awareness. We are optimistic that the candidates are prepared to create platforms where Black women and girls can thrive in Virginia. Our team believes that the more we engage in political activities such as these, when we cast our vote on November 2nd, it will be for the most qualified candidate for the position. With that being said, let's give a warm welcome to Madam President Sheila Bryan as she shares her opening remarks.
Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate those kind remarks. Welcome to the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Incorporated, Northern Virginia chapter's virtual town hall meeting. Today, we have an exciting opportunity to meet the Virginia candidates for governor, Princess Blanning, Terry McAuliffe, and Glenn Youngkin. They will discuss issues that have an unequal impact on Black women and girls' daily lives. Some examples: Black girls are disproportionately victims of sex trafficking and experience racial and gender bias in the classroom. Black women and girls experience disparities in access to the COVID-19 vaccine and medical treatment. And during the pandemic, financial security and mental health and wellness are more critical than ever before. The National Coalition of 100 Black Women Incorporated is a 501c3 nonprofit and nonpartisan organization. Through advocacy, we work as change agents to influence policies that promotes health, education, and economic empowerment. We believe through our efforts, we will fulfill our vision of seeing Black women and girls living in a world where socioeconomic inequality does not exist. On behalf of the board of directors and chapter members, we thank you for participating in our virtual town hall meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Now let's get ready to kick off this town hall meeting. Let me introduce our sister, Dina Booth, who will be the moderator for the first segment. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to introduce our first candidate, Mr. Terry McAuliffe, who is the Democratic nominee in the 2021 Virginia gubernatorial election. Let's welcome Mr. McAuliffe to the stage as he shares some brief comments about his campaign and his outlook for the state of Virginia.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be with everybody. I am driving back. I have been in Hampton Roads. I was at 11 churches this morning down in the Hampton Roads in Chesapeake and Norfolk, and now we're driving back. I got Christian at the wheel here, and I got Christina in the back, and it's a great honor to be with everybody, and I thank you for this opportunity. This is a very important election, as you all know. I think COVID-19, as we all know, has been so devastating, and it's been so devastating to the Black community. You've seen across the country, 44% of the small Black businesses have closed. So I'm running. I was recruited to run again by the leadership of the Black Caucus in Virginia, specifically Senate Pro Tem Louise Lucas and Sharon Al-Herring, our first African-American majority leader in the U.S. House. because I leaned in before during a time of crisis, and I'm going to do it again and take Virginia to the next level. As you all know, when I took office last time, I inherited a gigantic deficit in the new Virginia economy. And as you know, over my 4 years, we created 200,000 new jobs. Personal income went up 14%. Unemployment went from 5.7 all the way down to 3.3. And I tried to lift everybody up. That's my experience as governor. And I left a big surplus when I left office. But I also, as you all know, leaned in on the social criminal justice issues. As you know, as governor, I erased 114-year-old Jim Crow racist law and restored the rights of 173,000 individuals who had been convicted of a felony, who were barred for life from ever voting again. It was the largest enfranchisement of voters in United States history, more than any governor in the history of America, but to really right a wrong that had gone on. And I continued to work. I had more pardons than any governor before me. We had a racist criminal justice system. I remember pardoning a young man by the name of Lenny Singleton. Lenny was a young African-American man who tried cocaine, got addicted, and over the next 5 nights went out and did little grab and go, stole $511. His sentence in Virginia was 2 life sentences plus 110 years. It's almost hard to believe. I pardoned Lenny as I did for so many other people. So I banned the box, as you know, on state applications. I banned the Confederate flag from all Virginia license plates. I tried to make our state open and welcoming, treating everybody with dignity and respect, and really tried to right a lot of the wrongs of the past. Leaned in, and we did tremendous success. I also led the effort to get Medicaid expansion done here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, which unfortunately for 7 years, the Republicans would not do Medicaid expansion. And Virginia lost about $15 billion of our own taxpayer money that would have provided needed care for mental health, for opiate, and would have gotten 400,000 Virginians life-saving health care. Well, we finally have that done now that we have the Democrats in control. And I'm proud to say today there are 550,000 Virginians who now have access to quality, affordable care. So as we move forward, if you get a chance, I have 20 major plans on my website, Terry for Virginia. My main initiative is going to be education. I'm calling for a $2 billion investment in education. We've got to change our education system. Right now, teacher pay in Virginia, we're 50th out of 50 states on average teacher pay compared to the average pay of our residents. That's disgraceful for the 10th wealthiest state in America. So when I'm governor, I'm going to raise teacher pay above the national average for the first time ever. I'm going to get the 40,000 at-risk 3 and 4-year-olds pre-K so that they're taken care of. I'm going to get everybody access to broadband. And we're down to about 1,100 teachers. And today in Virginia, in the K-12 system, where more than 50% of our students are students of color, and yet 80% of our teachers are white. So I have a plan called Lucy Sims, as you know, was born enslaved in Harrisonburg. And I've named it after Lucy. And if you'll go teach in Virginia for 5 years at a high demand area, the state, will pay your room, board, and tuition at any HBCU, any college, or any university. So I want to transform education here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I want to lean in on affordable health care. We've got about 700,000 Virginians today that still, even after Medicaid expansion, still don't have health care. That includes 100,000 children. So what I'm going to do, work with Senator Jen McClellan, and we're going to get a marketplace next year in Virginia. In addition, I've already talked to the president about this. We're going to get a Section 1332 waiver from the federal government, and we are going to start our own reinsurance program here in Virginia. By doing both of those, we will bring down premiums. We will increase access and care for those in Virginia who need it the most. I have a whole plan on reducing prescription drug costs because during COVID, the pharmaceutical companies raised prescription drugs prices on over 1,000 drugs during COVID. That is just plain unacceptable. I have a whole plan, if you go to my website, Lifting Up Black Virginians, talking about what we need to do on home ownership so that we can have more Black ownership. I talk about standing up new lending programs for small businesses, SLAM businesses, as I really did before. It is really, really important. And my restoration of rights, I'm going to get it enshrined in the Virginia Constitution and continue to work on criminal justice reform. So I've got big, bold plans. I did this before, and I'll do it again. And that's why I'm back running for governor again. We got to go big, we got to be bold, and we've got to take care of everybody here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And that's minimum wage to $15. I am for paid sick leave. I am for family medical leave. I am for mandatory collective bargaining. My opponent is against each and every one of those. His economic plan will cut education by $10 billion. We will lose 43,000 teachers. We can't be losing teachers. We need more teachers. He wants to take money out of private school or public schools and put them into private schools. We can't be doing that now. And we've got to rebuild a lot of our aging infrastructure we have in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I do want to thank the president and the Democratic members of Congress, because not one Republican voted for it. The American Rescue Plan, which my opponent said was unnecessary. It's not unnecessary. It brought $14 billion to Virginia. $3 billion is going toward education. Got $70 million going toward vaccination. So I want to lean in on these big, bold issues. He said that Medicaid expansion was sad. No, folks, it's not sad. It's good. And we got to continue to do Medicaid expansion. He's been endorsed by Donald Trump 3 times. He said the reason he's running, so much of the reason I'm running is because of Donald Trump. Well, you know what? I'm running for governor for you. I'm not running for Donald Trump. And the old website for 7 months was election integrity, which is the code word for voter disenfranchisement, that somehow Trump won the 2020 election. So we're going to fight hard. We got challenges. I've been out front in the country for vaccination mandates. I think everybody needs to get it. I was one of the first to call for everybody who works in our
Hear us? Okay, there we go.
There we go. We need to get broadband in my car here, what we got to do. So I'm out front on vaccinations. Everyone who works in K-12 needs to be vaccinated. We need to protect our children. Our children need to wear masks. I've called for every employer to have every employee be vaccinated. I have called for everybody who works in hospitals and nursing homes and senior residential facilities need to be vaccinated. Folks, I don't have to tell you, this COVID is ravaging the country. It is ravaging Virginia. And until we kill COVID-19, it's going to continue to mutate and it's going to come back in different strains. And I worry at some point we may get a variant that is vaccine resistant, and then we are in a really world of hurt. So I've shown leadership. My opponent doesn't believe we should mandate masks or vaccinations. I think that disqualifies you. He actually said to college students, if you don't want to take it, don't take it. Just do an exemption. So I am leading on big, bold issues, and I'm going to take Virginia to the next level, and I'm going to lift everybody up, and I'm going to make sure that everybody, small business, everybody benefits over the course of the next couple of years.
Thank you, Mr. McAuliffe. Before we begin the question and answer portion of this segment, let's share the ground rules for tonight.
Sure.
There will be 10 questions in reference to education, economic empowerment, politics, and health awareness. You will have approximately 2.5 minutes for your responses.
Okay.
I will raise my hand. It will be a hand on the screen when there are 30 seconds left remaining for you to answer the question. So are we ready?
Ready.
Okay.
Good evening, candidate McAuliffe. My first question is on human trafficking, and my second question would be on COVID-19. Human trafficking comes in many ways: forced labor, bonded labor, debt, bondage among migrant laborers, involuntary domestic servitude, forced child labor, sex trafficking, and commercial sex trade. If elected governor, what is your plan to ensure there are opportunities to support Black women and girls who are being impacted by human trafficking in Virginia?
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, Well, first of all, as was last time when I was governor, my one issue is to make sure that every Virginian is always safe. That is, the key thing that you rate of any state in America. But I think what we need to do to make sure that law enforcement and others, that we have zero tolerance on any human trafficking. We need to expand our community services in the state. We need to have more community services out there. We need to invest more for the training and education for our law enforcement so that they have an awareness early on relates to human trafficking. I will dismantle any system out there, anything that would potentially endanger any child in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I did this before. I wanted to make sure that our state was always open and welcoming. And I will ensure that we keep Virginia safe.
And my second question, if elected governor, what are your plans to educate unvaccinated Black girls and women who are hesitant to take the COVID-19 vaccine?
Sure. And I've been very public on this. I want every school to stay open. I want to make sure we continue to grow our economy. That cannot happen unless we get every individual vaccinated. Now, people may have a legitimate religious reason or health reason, but as we all know, that is a very, very small percentage. We still are about 50% here in Virginia of those that have been, I have been very vocal on this. I have done press conference after press conference. So I think we have to show that we're willing to lead on it. As I said earlier, if you work in K-12, you got to be vaccinated. It's absolutely critical for us. So what I will do is set up more mobile vaccination clinics around the state, do more public awareness events. We have to encourage individuals to understand this is now FDA approved. And it's FDA approved. And listen, if you go to K-12 today in Virginia, you have to get vaccinations. Everybody in life has to get them. I got a son who was a captain in the United States Marine Corps. He said, Dad, I had to get 17 vaccinations in the Marine Corps, when you travel around the globe and do all that. So we've just got to get everyone to understand that it's safe, but I am going to be
Mr. McAuliffe, you may need to turn your camera off. It seems we're not able to hear you. I'm not sure if you may need to turn your camera off. We're not able to quite hear you.
Okay, hang on a second. Can you hear me now? I can see everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're in this car. I apologize. Oh, here we go. I've got this up here. Is this better? Do this one. All right. I'm switching to another phone. Let's see here. They think this will give me a better signal here. Wait a minute.
Okay. We may need to go on to question 3.
Hang on here. Hang on. I'm almost with you here. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Does that work? Nope. Okay. So what I was saying, at Florida, Georgia, all these states that didn't require masks, guess what happened? They've shut all these school districts down. They've got thousands of children in quarantine today. They've doubled the amount of deaths that we have with children in Florida.
Say on to the next one. Okay, it seems, Mr. McAuliffe, it seems we've lost you again.
Okay, we're back. You see me?
We do see you. And,
all right, we got a different device we're trying now. So I'll end up on that.
Okay.
You see what's happened. I'll make sure everybody gets vaccinated. That's the goal.
Okay, we can move
Hey,
on to number 3.
Great.
Good evening, candidate McAuliffe. If elected governor, what are your plans to provide incentives for businesses to extend paid family leave for absences due to COVID-19?
Oh my goodness. So if you get a chance, go to Terry for Virginia. I have been out front from day one that I will have paid sick leave for all of our workers. 50% of the workers in Virginia today do not have access to paid sick leave. So when I'm governor, I will get it passed. And let's be clear, my opponent is against paid sick leave. I just don't understand the argument. If somebody is sick, they have COVID or the flu, you don't want sick workers coming into work and infecting other workers. It costs our economy $160 billion in America a year. So I am very out front on this. I'm for paid sick leave. I'm for family medical leave. I'm for raising the $15 minimum wage. I think it's disgraceful. You know, we got SEIU workers who go to 5-10 homes a day, taking care of our loved ones, our elderly, getting on bus after bus, and they're paid $7.25 and they have no benefits. That's disgraceful. So that's why I'm saying $15 minimum wage by 2024, paid sick leave for all workers in Virginia, family medical leave, paid hazard pay. And the other thing I will get done is mandatory collective bargaining here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. It is time we take care of our workers. We have just been ranked the best state in America for business our second year in a row, first state to get it. However, we're not the best state in America for our workers. So for me, lifting everybody up, and I want you to ask all the other candidates, are you for paid sick leave? Are you for raising the minimum wage? Are you family medical leave? Are you for paid hazard pay? And are you for mandatory collective bargaining? And I'm for all of those. I'm very public. They're all on my website, and I will get that done. I got to have a Democratic majority, though. We have a 5-seat majority here in Virginia. It will not happen if Republicans take control. Remember, they would not even do Medicaid expansion for 7 years. Really? 400,000 Virginians were left out. Some woman is not alive today because she couldn't get the mammogram screening that we paid for, and yet they won't do it again. And that's why it's important that people get out and vote for getting this done, and I will get it done, I promise for you. But you bet paid sick leave. But paid sick leave is just one of the tools in the toolbox that I want to lift up our workers.
Thank you for your time.
Good evening, candidate McAuliffe. If elected governor, what are your plans to assist Black women who are living with mental illness impacted or aggravated by the stress of COVID due to job loss, loss of medical insurance, and financial hardship?
Is that me or that? Huh?
Unclear.
You have signal on our end.
Hmm?
You have signal full bars on our end.
Yeah, we got full bars here, but I can't hear anybody.
If elected governor, what are your plans to assist Black women who are living with mental illness impacted by the stress of COVID due to job loss, loss of medical insurance, and financial hardship?
Yeah, good question. So leading in on mental health, I did this before as governor, and I fought my Republican legislature constantly. They wouldn't do Medicaid expansion, which literally had billions of dollars for mental health care in there. So I started a thing called A Healthy Virginia. And that's a program that I put together. And so through executive order, I got thousands, tens of thousands of people mental health coverage that did not have it before. We have a thing in Virginia called the Virginia Mental Health Access Project. I will expand that. I'm sure you saw the other day that of our 8 facilities, they were all full. They could not take any more individuals who were dealing with a mental health crisis. And the governor, as you know, just put hundreds of millions of dollars into the budget to do new training, to get more workers. So one thing we need to do, and we have a shortage of those working in our mental health facilities today. So we've got to realign our education system. We've got to pay our mental health providers more money, provide them better benefits. And I will use the money that we have to have more facilities and streamline our process to make it easier for people and for licensing and education so that we can open more mental health treatment facilities. The other big point I try to make on mental health, 25% of the people who are in our criminal justice system have a mental health issue. They don't have a criminal justice issue. And what we need to do is when people are brought to the jails, and I made sure, it was a big battle, but I got it done, to make sure that in every jail in Virginia, we have someone there who has mental health training so they can deal with the crisis at the moment. My goal always is, I don't want to get somebody into the criminal justice system. If they're having a mental health crisis, don't get them in the criminal justice system, move them right out and give treatment for the mental health illness that they are actually dealing with. That is morally the right thing to do. But folks, it also makes sense for the state. It also makes sense financially. Once you get someone into the criminal justice system, we spend about $34,000 per year per prisoner. If we were to take and keep people out of the criminal justice system, get treatment early, we save the state money. We're helping that individual who's dealing with a mental health crisis. So more facilities, better training, more money for the people who are actually working in our mental health facilities. As I say, I did this before. I have a track record. I got tens of thousands of people with mental health, but I clearly understand the issue. COVID has been so tough on so many. That's why the next couple of years are going to be challenging. And that's why, as I say, the Black Caucus recruited me to come back and run again, because I did this before. Now I've got to do it through COVID. But, you know, I'm excited. I want Virginia to lead America out of this COVID crisis. And that means we're taking care of those on mental health, helping those small businesses that have been knocked down and helping lift them up. And I'm always out there, as I say, more restoration rights than any governor in U.S. history, more pardons than any governor before me. I'm all about giving people second chances.
And my final question is, if elected governor, what are your plans to assure that Black women and girls have access to psychiatric and mental health services?
Yeah, and that's very similar to the last question. Everybody should have access. And, I want to state that everybody is truly taken care of. And I will make sure that every child, no matter the color of one's skin or gender, everybody's going to get coverage when I'm governor. We have to invest in mental health. We have to do it early. We have to identify these issues very early on. The earlier we can do it, the better off we all we all are as a society. But as I say, one of the biggest drivers that's helping us is Medicaid expansion, which the Democrats got done, Republicans wouldn't do. That is billions of dollars that we are able to use here in Virginia to provide mental health services. And we now have 550,000 Virginians today that are actually getting health coverage, let it be mental health treatment, let it be opiate addiction or whatever it may be. We now have the money and the resources that we now have to get that done. And be honest with you, my opponent said that Medicaid expansion was sad. It's not sad, it's great. The more people we got health coverage, the better off we're going to be as a state.
Briefly, could you tell us, if elected governor, what are your plans to invest in high quality education for Black girls?
Sure. And I have a whole section on this on my education plan. As I mentioned in my opening, we got a lot of work to do on education. We're down 1,100 teachers in Virginia today. Teachers can go to Maryland or Pennsylvania or Delaware or whatever and get $10,000 to $22,000 more a teacher. And you wonder why we're losing some of our best teachers. So to help young children, to help everybody, I promise everybody we will have a world-class education. I love our teachers. I support our teachers. I want them safe in the classrooms. That's why I want masks worn by our children to keep them safe and our teachers safe. I will invest $2 billion a year in our education system so that we can get more teachers, so that we can diversify our teacher base through my Lucy Sims Scholarship. Very important. And there's a real difference. The economic plan put forth by my opponent, Glenn Youngkin, is, if you'll read the Washington Post or the Roanoke Times, will decimate. He wants to eliminate Virginia's income tax, which that would wipe out 72% of the general fund budget of Virginia. That would directly lead to a cut of $10 billion in education funding and would cost the state 43,000 teachers. When I was governor before, even though I had a deficit, I put $1 billion into education to redo all of our schools. When I was the 72nd governor, I got rid of 5 tests. We had too many SOLs in Virginia. Teachers were teaching the tests, children were learning to memorize. We don't want that. We want cognitive thought process, critical reasoning. Can you figure out a problem? So realigning all of that, I had a whole program called Classrooms, Not Courtrooms. The African-American community was disproportionately affected by discipline issues on suspensions and expulsions. So I started a whole program called Classrooms, Not Courtrooms. And I will continue to do that. So I'm about funding education, not cutting, because I always view education as an investment. That's why I want to get 40,000 children at risk, 3 and 4-year-olds. I want to get them pre-K. Every dollar we invest in pre-K, we get $9 back. There's not a kindergarten teacher today that will tell you within a couple days or a day, they will know if a child has a pre-K education. It's not fair that some children get pre-K and others don't. The other big issue I want to deal with is school construction. And I've talked to the president of the United States about this on infrastructure spending. We need to build more schools. 50% of our schools are over 50 years old. I was touring a school the other day down in Bristol, Virginia, and a great school. It's the only elementary school they have in Bristol. And I noticed all these holes in the wall. And I said to the principal, "What is that?" She said, "Oh, Governor, those are rat holes." She said, "Our school is infested with rats. We've got bats in our ceiling." She had a fire in her office because the wiring was so low. They have 1 bathroom, 2 stalls for the entire school, a little piece of paper on the stall, 1 for teachers, 1 for students. We can't have that. Your education should not be dependent on your zip code. everybody gets a quality world-class education when I'm governor. But as I say, I need a Democratic legislature to actually get this done.
Okay, we're going to go on to the next question.
Good evening. With
Good
the
evening.
current changes to gerrymandering happening in Black areas, if elected governor, what are your plans to ensure that Black women still have access to their votes?
Yeah, great question. And as I said earlier, this is something I've always fought for. As I say, more restoration rights, 200,000 more than any governor in U.S. history. Lifting people up, giving them second chances in life is very important to me. And as you know, my opponent, he's only had one plan on his website for 7 months, and it wasn't education, it wasn't healthcare. You know what it was? Election integrity. That's the code word for Trump won the 2020 election. That's about disenfranchisement. That's about voter suppression. I have been a warrior my entire life, voting to make sure that people have access to the voting booth. I used to be chairman of the Democratic National Committee. I started a whole program in 50 states to make sure that we were making it easier. I am very concerned, as you know, that in 30 plus states in America, they have rolled back voting rights. They've made it harder for African Americans to vote. You look at Georgia, you look at what they just did in Texas. We're not going to let that happen here. And here in Virginia, with the Democratic legislature the last 2 years, we have been able to expand our voting operations. We have early vote. It actually starts this Friday. We have 45 days early vote. We got rid of no excuse absentee ballot. We have no excuse absentee balloting. So anybody who wants to vote, but I think we can go further. I think we need to get younger poll workers. I think we need to recruit more diverse poll workers. I think would be very, very important. We need more voter education for many of our registrars, because as you know, there has been a history in this country of denying people the right to vote. And all of this talk that comes from the Republicans about the election was stolen. Donald Trump was on radio the other day in Virginia, barking for my opponent, saying, we got to watch Virginia. They're going to steal the election. We don't steal elections here. There's no evidence of voter fraud. These are code words to deny people legitimate right to vote. People have fought and died in this nation for the right to vote. People have worn the cloth of our country to fight for our democracy. I know we have a couple on today. I know we've got some of the folks presently in the military, and I know Sheila, you were a Marine. I had a son who fought for the Marine Corps. We got to honor and respect everybody who fought for our country. We got to protect democracy, and we cannot roll back. So as governor, I will make sure that everybody who has a right to vote will be able to vote. And we've got to do a better job, I think, on voter education. We got to let people know we have an election this year. I tell people all the time, I know the president's important, but the governor's what really matters. The governors run education. We run the healthcare. We build the roads. We clean the roads. As I say, when I leaned in on these issues, I'm the guy who banned the Confederate flag from the Virginia license plate. I banned the box on state applications. It matters who is governor to make sure we have an open and welcoming system, treat everybody with dignity and respect. And that was always been my goal.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. McAuliffe, for your candid responses.
Thank you.
So we were glad to have you. And
thank you.
We have just wrapped up our first session. But before
thanks to all of you. Make sure you get out and vote early. Vote starts this Friday. We got to take Virginia to the next level. Open and welcoming.
Okay. Now, before we invite our next moderator, Sister Versi Lyles, to the stage, we're going to take a brief 1-minute break before continuing with our town hall.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to introduce our second candidate, Ms. Princess Blandon, who is the Liberation nominee in the 2021 Virginia gubernatorial election. Let's welcome Ms. Blandon to the stage as she shares some brief comments about her campaign and her outlook for the state of Virginia.
Good evening. My name is Princess Blandon, candidate for governor under the newly formed Liberation Party. I would like to thank the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Northern Virginia chapter for this opportunity to speak during this amazing town hall. I am grateful to be the first Black woman, the first LGBTQIA plus community member to be on the ballot for governor in the history of Virginia. Despite my Democratic opponent in the Democratic parties continuously saying that Black Lives Matter, please do note that they are continuously excluding me from any debate, and they are trying to erase my candidacy. We as Black women have a lot to be proud of and to celebrate. I am the very proud mother of 3 amazing daughters, and I am a veteran public school teacher here in Northern Virginia. I am also the proud sister of the late Marcus David Peters, a Black man who was murdered on May 14th, 2018, while he was unarmed, completely undressed, and experiencing his very first mental health crisis. Following the unjust murder of my brother, my family and I, alongside a growing base of supporters, begged and pleaded with our local and state legislators to enact legislation calling on mental health professionals to be the first responders to a mental health crisis, and not police officers who are equipped with the tools that they intend to use. We begged for our legislators to put community care and safety first. Our pleas were ignored and silenced until the summer of 2020, post the unjust murder of George Floyd, that sparked an uprising in Richmond, Virginia, along with the rest of the nation. Performative attempts from our legislators to work with me on creating legislation to address the demands of the people delivered weak, watered down legislation and bills they killed altogether, such as the bill to end qualified immunity. It was during this time that I came to the conclusion that we cannot keep begging our oppressors to be our saviors because they simply will not. It was also at this time that I came to the conclusion that we must expand our fight from the streets and into the seats of the key elected positions in order to claim what we absolutely deserve, which is the full course meal. I am running for governor of Virginia due to the continuous failures of the 2-party system, especially the Democratic Party. I am a very strong believer that liberation is a human right, not a privilege, and that no legislation can continue to go forward about us without us. We understand more now than ever that we cannot continue to do the same thing and expect different results. I am not a career politician, let that be known. I am an impact in Virginia. My candidacy is solely out of necessity and due to the continuous failures of the 2-party system. And I am running for governor of Virginia as a strong advocate for the people with a campaign that is supported and ran by the people. As your next governor, I am committed to working for working class Virginians, ensuring that Black liberation matters and ensuring that no legislation is passed about us without us. Together, we will ensure that all legislation is based on the foundation of equity and humanity. And as governor, I will ensure that liberation for all Virginians is a human right, not a privilege. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Blandon. And before we begin the Q&A portion of this segment, let's share some ground rules for this evening. There will be questions in reference to education, economic empowerment, politics, and health awareness. You will have approximately 2.5 minutes for your responses. Now, I will be using the raised hand emoji when there are 30 seconds remaining on the clock to answer the question. And in the event that you don't see that raised hand, I will, of course, chime in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, candidate Blanding.
Good evening.
My first question is on human trafficking. And human trafficking, as we know, comes in many ways. Forced labor, bonded labor, debt bondage among migrant laborers, involuntary domestic servitude, forced child labor, sex trafficking, and child commercial sex trade. If elected governor, what is your plan to ensure there are opportunities to support Black women and girls who are being impacted by human trafficking in Virginia?
Absolutely. Well, over 40% of human trafficking victims are Black women, with over 50% involving Black children. And when we talk about human trafficking, we must understand that it comes in many forms to include forced labor, debt bondage, involuntary domestic servitude, and sex trafficking. Trans women of color, predominantly trans Black women, experience the most violence of any type of person and have a murder rate 7 times higher than the national average. Transgender Black women and often Black women in general are often victims or survivors of sexual trafficking due to strained relationships with the police, lack of healthcare access, and workplace discrimination that leads to financial and housing instabilities. To confront human trafficking, we need to address the vulnerabilities of the people that are being trafficked. The practices of human trafficking, and its high profitability does not discriminate, but the reality is that Black women and girls are being affected at a disproportionately higher rate. We are dealing with an urgent crisis of missing Black and Indigenous women and girls that is not getting enough attention, and more importantly, it is not getting enough immediate actions. As governor, I will form a strong anti-human trafficking task force to propose measures to combat human trafficking while also taking proactive measures to prevent human trafficking and provide resources and supports to victims and their families. As governor, I will work with grassroots community partners that are already doing the groundwork. We will ensure that we know the indicators of human trafficking, address the why and how variables that put our Black women and girls at a higher risk of being impacted by human trafficking, such as poverty, mental health issues, addiction, and gender inequalities. Trauma-informed training in the workplace, along with proper training to prevent re-traumatizing during service delivery, will also be key. A part of the solution must be listening to Black women, including Black women in every process to ensure that, we are building our communities from within, with the guidance and leadership and representation from those who are impacted. As your future governor, I am committed to not only invest in funds into addressing human trafficking of our Black women and girls, but I am also committed to personally being a community partner in this process. My commitment includes decriminalizing sex work as a valid form of work that has labor protections, healthcare, childcare, so that sex workers are also safe and empowered. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Good evening, candidate Blanding.
Good evening.
If elected governor, what are your plans to educate Black girls and women who are hesitant to take the COVID vaccination?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I must be 100% transparent and honest in saying that in my house, I have a young 13-year-old daughter who was very reluctant to getting vaccinated. And I am certain, that a lot of, her hesitancy has come from my own concerns, surrounding getting vaccinated, my own reluctancy and fears, and memories, horrific memories of the Tuskegee experiment on Black people. So, I was not quick to get vaccinated, as I needed more time and space to do my own homework and to be convinced in my own mind that this was the right and safest decision for my family and I. I felt like things were happening way too fast, and that the green light was being given on these various vaccinations, for COVID, However, we still don't have a vaccination for HIV, which has had a great adverse impact on Black people. So these are just a few of the variables and fears that put distance between my daughter and I quickly getting vaccinated. We are fully vaccinated now, but we had so many questions, yet so few answers. And there was, and there is this push to do what the government says is in the best interest for us, right? While we're muting Black voices and concerns and fears. Although death has fallen on so many of our doorsteps due to COVID, the fear, the distrust has proven to be even stronger in stalling the efforts for us to get 100% fully vaccinated. As governor, I am committed to staying boots on the ground and going into our communities across the Commonwealth to not only educate our hesitant community members about COVID vaccines, but to take a moment to listen, to empathize, and to build trust in relationships, provide honest and transparent answers and data, and address the misinformation out there. Right now, we are failing to reach our unvaccinated community members due to our approach. We must meet our community members where they are and ensure that pre and post-vaccination resources and supports are in place. We must make getting vaccinated accessible and ensure financial support and resources to our Black women and Black girls while learning from our past and our past mistakes and understanding that shaming people is not effective at all. It has proven to be ineffective. We must educate, build trust in relationships, and provide resources and supports to make getting vaccinated accessible.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, candidate Blanding.
Good evening.
If elected governor, good evening. Thank you for joining us. If elected governor, what are your plans to provide incentives for businesses to extend paid family leave for absences due to COVID?
Sure. So in general, as governor, I'm committed to enacting laws to ensure full-time workers receive 3 weeks yearly of paid time off and 2 weeks minimum of sick leave. As we are dealing with this unprecedented times, at the hands of COVID-19, it is imperative that we provide tax credits to reimburse businesses for the cost of providing paid family and medical leave to employees that are unable to work because of the coronavirus. Paid sick leave must be treated as a human right, not a privilege, and workers' rights and protections will be prioritized and protected.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, candidate Blanding.
Good evening.
If elected governor, what are your plans to assist Black women who are living with mental illness impacted or aggravated by the stress of COVID due to job loss, loss of medical insurance, and financial hardship?
Sure. Well, the reality is that Black women have been surviving with mental illness brought on by generational trauma and magnified by gender bias, inequalities, healthcare, racism, violence, poverty, you name it, and also the stigmas in the Black community that prevent Black women and Black girls from seeking help. What COVID did was exacerbate this already growing concern in the Black community by increasing the rate, intensity, and onset of Black women and girls who are experiencing mental health struggles. As governor, I will ensure that we deliver race-conscious interventions. As governor, I will fight for Medicare for all. And this is extremely important in addressing our uninsured or underinsured Black women and the healthcare disparities that tailgate along. Ensuring the treatment is collaborative and culturally sensitive will be key in increasing buy-in in the effectiveness of treatment. We must note that women are twice as likely to experience a severe episode of depression compared to men, and half as likely to seek help as our white counterparts. As governor, I will strengthen the Marcus David Peters Act, which in its original language, it included required layers for the creation of a community care team that takes a proactive approach at addressing and going out into our communities to provide resources and supports, building trust and relationships, and working to break the stigma surrounding mental illness in our Black communities. We will help to address the spark well before it gets to a fire, which results in a full-blown mental health crisis. Virginia has received over $2 million federal grant dollars to address the behavioral health impact of COVID-19. As governor, I will ensure that federal and state funds are invested in addressing the needs of Black women who are fighting with job loss of medical insurance, and financial hardships that have impacted their mental health due to the aggravated stresses of COVID-19. The goal is to help our Black women get back on their feet and remain in those key functional positions and have those key foundational components that they have already lost. The funding is there. However, we must ensure that Black communities are getting their fair share.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
If elected governor, what are your plans to ensure that Black women and girls have access to psychiatric and mental health services?
Sure. So as many of you may know, that the spark that led me onto this path of running for governor was a spark by the unjust murder of my brother, Marcus David Peters. My brother was a 24-year-old VCU graduate, high school biology teacher, who was murdered by a Richmond police officer while he was unarmed, completely undressed, and experiencing his very first mental health crisis. So from May 14, 2018, when my brother was murdered, until the summer of 2020, my family and I, along with a growing base of community supporters, we begged our legislators to enact legislation that calls on mental health professionals to be the first responders to a confirmed or suspected mental health crisis. And what we end up getting, when we kind of fast forward, what we got was weak, watered down legislation. The bill is named after my brother, Marcus David Peters. However, it is not in the state in which it was intended to. The Marcus Alert Bill was intended to help ensure that a person experiencing a mental health crisis received help, not death. What we got was a weak, watered down bill in my brother's name that would still result in a person that's having a mental health crisis receiving unjust brutalization, unjust incarceration, or death being their final verdict. As a Black woman who has been fighting for Black liberation with all odds against me, trust me, I know firsthand the importance of ensuring that Black women and Black girls have access to psychiatric and mental health services. I, like many Black women, I am the main pillar and the breadwinner in my household. As young Black girls and Black women, society continuously tells us and shows us that we have no option but to be strong Black women, even when everything around us is crumbling. Society tells us that we are allowed to crack, but we're not allowed to be broken. So between the stigma surrounding mental health in the Black community, the stigma surrounding supernatural strengths that Black girls and Black women must have, as governor, I am committed to investing in psychiatric and mental health services as we are facing a caregiver shortage, which is causing the doors to be closed on many of our mental health facilities as well. I am also committed to investing in and addressing the root cause of mental health issues with Black girls and Black women, to include Black trans women, in order to take a more proactive approach while also ensuring access to mental health services. Amending the Marcus Alert Bill to strengthen it to be the life-saving mental health crisis response system that it was intended to be, and supporting community partners to help normalize talking about mental health and seeking mental health services, it will be key. I know firsthand that oftentimes when Black women seek medical care to include mental health services, providers oftentimes do not believe us. We go misdiagnosed, ignored, and denied of any assistance until we hit crisis. We must treat mental health the same as we treat other illnesses, while ensuring equitable access and funding to mental health services for Black women and Black girls.
Thank you for your time.
Sure, thank you.
Briefly, if elected governor, what are your plans to invest in high quality education for Black girls?
Sure. So as a Black woman, a Black mother of three amazing daughters, Black educator myself, and former school administrator, and as a Black candidate for governor, I know firsthand the importance of investing not only revenue, but time, resources, and supports and mentorship to ensure high quality education for our Black girls, for our future Black leaders. Too often, the hidden or even obvious talents and potentials of our Black girls are overlooked and overshadowed by the refusal to conform to the norms of this system that views the very fibers of our being as consequential. Now, understand that I am the very proud mother of a 13-year-old daughter who's received special education services, a loving, happy 5-year-old who started school for the first time wearing a mask. And I'm also the very proud mother of a 20-year-old daughter who graduated 2 years early from high school at the age of 14, having earned her associate's degree 2 months prior, and is now wrapping up her master's degree in computer science after earning her bachelor's degree in psychology. While this journey in public education is still fresh from my kindergarten, the road for my other two has been a journey full of frustration, determination, and resilience. Excuse me. What I have learned as both a mother and educator is that in order to ensure a high quality education for our Black girls, we must listen to them, support their unique learning styles, and foster growth in their unique areas of interest. Recruiting and retaining more Black teachers and Black mentors is only a piece of the puzzle. We must fully fund Black futures to not only ensure that our Black girls are career ready, but also ensure that they are positioned to build Black wealth, to build generational wealth. As governor, I will ensure a safe place that fosters the growth and education without disturbance for our Black trans girls as well. All Black children need schools free of school resource officers, police, who cause them to feel unsafe, as exemplified by the recent police officer attack on a student in Nelson County. As governor, I will implement a family choice education system that includes in-person, virtual, hybrid, self-paced, trades programs, and community hands-on learning options to meet the unique styles and the most appropriate learning environment for our students. We must listen to our Black girls and move forward on their input and advice on their needs and how they learn best. As an educator and science teacher, it is important that we also ensure that our Black girls have the opportunity to have access to state-of-the-art facilities with opportunities to grow and flourish in our STEMS programs as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Blanking.
Good evening. With the current changes to gerrymandering happening in Black areas, if elected governor, what are your plans to ensure that Black women still have access to their votes?
Absolutely, and that's extremely important. You know, as the first woman in Virginia's history to make it on the general election ballot for governor, this is a question that is deep and personal for me. History has shown that Black women turn out to vote at a higher rate than other demographics, and that Black women have had great influence over the last several presidential elections. As a Black woman running for governor in the capital of the Confederacy, and as a third-party candidate determined to shatter the oppressive nature and harms of the duopoly, every single attempt has been made to prevent me from getting on the ballot. And the struggle continues with the intentional attempts to erase my candidacy by eliminating me from debates, depriving my campaign of airtime and media coverage, and eliminating me from most of the polls. Deceiving voters into voting blindly is a form of voter suppression. It is a way to deprive voters, especially Black voters, of the ability to make an informed decision and the option to have our votes count. Now, as it is true with my fearless predecessors, such as Sojourner Truth and Shirley Chisholm, I will continue to push forward and pave the way for Black girls and Black women. As governor, I will take bold steps forward to remove corporate donations from the electoral process to help even the playing fields for all potential candidates. I will increase polling locations and hours to make voting more accessible. I will ensure that Virginians Redistricting Commission exercises the anti-prison gerrymandering law when drawing Virginia's map. This is imperative in making sure that our, incarcerated community members have voting power where they reside, opposed to where they are incarcerated at. Black women, Black advocacy, and Black votes have been and will always be the force behind change. As governor, I will take every measure to ensure that Black women still have access to their votes and to empower more Black women to run for leadership positions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blandon. And at this time, we would like to extend the opportunity for you to take a few minutes to give closing remarks.
Sure. Again, I would like to thank the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Northern Virginia chapter, for extending the opportunity for me to be a part of this amazing town hall. I would like to thank all of the listeners as well. And I encourage you to take a moment to visit our website at www.princessblandon.com to learn more about our campaign. And understand that our goal and our reason for running, and I say "our" because I am the vessel for the people, one of the many vessels for the people, but this is about all of us, and that, we are fighting to ensure that liberation is a human right, not a privilege, well beyond words. So again, thank you all for the opportunity to attend.
Thank you, Ms. Blandon. Well, we've just wrapped up our second session, but before we invite our next moderator, Sister Lisa Reynolds, to the stage, let's go ahead and take a 2-minute break so you can refresh your beverage, but please hurry back because you don't want to miss any part of our next session. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Hello, this is Glenn Youngkin.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to introduce our final candidate for the evening, Mr. Glenn Youngkin. Mr. Glenn Youngkin who is the Republican nominee in the 2021 Virginia gubernatorial election. Let's welcome Mr. Youngkin to the stage as he shares some brief comments about his campaign and his outlook for the state of Virginia.
Great, good evening, and thank you so much for including me in this important forum. And I just wanted to let you know that, first of all, I just find it to be an honor to be with you. Second, I want to thank you for including Princess Blanding in tonight's forum. And I'm hoping she can be included in all of our discussions and debates going forward. Third, let me just spend a minute on a quick introduction of myself. I was born in Virginia. I was born in a little part of Richmond called Bon Air, and then went to elementary school and junior high school in Chesterfield County. When I was in 7th grade, my dad lost his job, and that happens to families. And my mother held us together, and she was an amazingly strong woman. She was a nurse, always learning, ended up continuing in school and became a nursing professor. But she pulled us together after 7th grade and said, you know, we're going to start all over again. And our family moved down to Virginia Beach. And I went to junior high school and high school in Virginia Beach. Got a job when I was 15. I learned how to work hard. I was working at a diner down at the beach, taking out trash and washing dishes. And I learned how to dream. I learned how to dream big dreams. And at the core of it was understanding that there's real dignity in work, but education became such a huge theme in my family. My mother believed in it in an extraordinary way. I was a basketball player, and having I guess, one, I'm tall, I'm 6'6", and so God gave me an amazing gift, but it also opened up all doors for me. And I had a chance to play college basketball, Division I college basketball, and get an amazing education at a school called Rice University in Houston, Texas. It's where actually after school, the Lord took amazing pity on me and introduced me to Suzanne, who has been just my wonderful life partner and eternal partner. And she makes me so much better than I would be otherwise. I went to graduate school for 2 years in Boston, and we came back to Virginia 27 years ago. I went to work for a small company called the Carlyle Group. It was 25 people at the time, and it grew to be a big company over the 25 years I was there, and I had the amazing privilege of running it for a while. Our founders trusted me and let me step in and take over from them with another gentleman. Last summer, I had a big weight on my heart. You know, my life is guided by my faith. I became a Christian when I was in my 20s. When I asked Suzanne to marry me, she said, yes, but you need to make sure that Jesus is in the middle of our life. Of course, I wanted to get married, but I had no idea what transformational path she was putting me on. And so I'll always be forever grateful for her. And through my own prayer life last summer, I felt an amazing sense of both purpose and calling to step out of my job at Carlisle, which I thought was my dream job, and to go into public service. And so we prepared to get ready to run for governor. I had two big drivers. One was I was very frustrated with where I saw Virginia going. And I think Virginia can be so much better. I think we've started to settle as opposed to continue to aspire. But second of all, I was very frustrated with the Republican Party. I felt the Republican Party had become almost a party to exclude people as opposed to represent all people. And if we don't have a competitive Republican Party in Virginia, where we don't have two parties actually working together to move Virginia forward, then I don't think we have democracy at its best. And so I stepped out of my job last summer and got ready to run for governor. I've never run for political office before in my life, and we were blessed enough to win the Republican nomination, and have been working hard all summer to share who I am and what I believe in, but most importantly, what we as a Commonwealth of Virginia could achieve together. And so we have 5 days left until this election starts, where everybody gets to go vote. And I'm just so excited to have a chance to share with all of you some of the many things that I think we could do together. But one last big comment before we get started in the discussion. I had a great mentor in business who taught me that bad leaders think they know everything. And so over the course of the discussion tonight, I'm going to ask that we have a number of topics that we get back together and discuss. And I know that you're going to ask me questions, and I'm going to do my best to answer them with transparency and honestly. But I also hope that we can get together again. What I've found over the course of the last 8 months of this campaign is that I have good ideas, I believe, but I have a much better idea of how to solve problems, bringing in experts and bringing in people that have real specific knowledge about how to move things forward. And so I look forward to that opportunity with this group to sit down and listen, where I can hear from you the many ideas I know that you have on how to address so many of the topics that we're going to discuss tonight and probably many other ones. So I view this as chapter 1 and hopefully a multi-chapter book where we can work together to make Virginia a better place. Finally, I do believe that part of why I'm here is because I've been kind of called to be here, and I'm trying faithfully to walk that walk. I don't spend a lot of time picking on my opponent, and I don't spend a lot of time addressing mistruths that are said about me, but hopefully tonight through the discussion, we'll have a chance to really talk about what I do believe in, what I do stand for, versus what my opponent says about me, because I don't believe that he really allows the truth to get in the way very often. And so I do look forward to this great discussion, and I hope together we can solve many, many problems for Virginians broadly, but particularly for Black women and Black girls that I know you hold so dearly. So thank you for allowing me to join you, and I look forward to the discussion tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Youngkin. Before we begin with the question and answer portion of this segment, let's share some ground rules for this evening. There will be 10 questions in reference to education, economic empowerment, politics, and health awareness. You will have approximately 2.5 minutes for your responses. I will raise my hand when there are 30 seconds left remaining on the clock for you to answer your question. Let's begin.
And can I ask one favor?
Yes.
If I finish before 2.5 minutes, can I carry over some time, because there's some particular topics here that I think might take a little longer for us to discuss?
I think that that's very possible.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, candidate Youngkin.
Good evening.
Okay, my first question is on human trafficking. And human trafficking comes in many ways: forced labor, bonded labor, debt bondage among migrant laborers, involuntary domestic servitude, forced child labor, sex trafficking, and child commercial sex trade. If elected governor, what is your plan to ensure there are opportunities to support Black women and girls who are being impacted by human trafficking in Virginia?
So I want to thank you for starting with this question. This was the area of my very first policy rollout when I won the nomination for governor. My wife, Suzanne, and I, as I said, we've been married for 27 years, and human trafficking was placed on our heart in a very, very meaningful way. And so it's an area that we've spent quite a lot of time, both working internationally with organizations, but also domestically. And so we have a chance with a governor who presses forward with an aggressive plan to not just reduce human trafficking, but to stop it, to end it. This is modern day slavery. And I believe that we've turned a blind eye to it. Yes, there's been progress made, and it's been bipartisan. No one thinks that human trafficking is a good thing, of course. But I believe we have been slow. I believe that we have been short-sighted, and I believe we can do so much better. So let me cover 3 primary topics. First, we must enforce the law, and we must increase the penalties. It starts with the customer. This is not a fine. This should include jail time. Second of all, we must equip law enforcement much more comprehensively to deal with human trafficking. Today, we have special training, but it's not comprehensively done. And as a result, many of those in law enforcement aren't able to deal with the clear signs and react appropriately in situations where there is clear human trafficking occurring. Finally, we have to increase funding. This will take funding, and we'll talk about this over the course of this evening. But investing in battling and ending human trafficking is square on my day one agenda to make sure we have priority investing. Second thing we have to do is empower survivors. Those of you may know Tanya Gould, who's running for delegate down in Tidewater. She's become a friend, and she and I launched this whole initiative together. Tanya is a survivor. We have to empower survivors to get their life back, to create opportunities to help train them for careers so that they can, in fact, take their lives back as opposed to have them taken from them. And the third area of priority is to educate. We have three groups to educate. First, we must educate, as I said, law enforcement. But we also have to educate educators, teachers, professors, administrators in our school system to see the signs of human trafficking. And we also must educate families. If we all work together and prioritize ending human trafficking, we can. Today, in Fairfax County alone, 500 men will solicit to buy sex from women and girls who are being trafficked. This is just an absolute blight, and we're going to end it. And so thank you for letting me start on a topic that is so important to me.
Thank you for your time.
Good evening, candidate Youngkin.
Good evening.
If elected governor, what are your plans to educate Black girls and women who are hesitant to take the COVID vaccination?
Great. Thank you for this important question as well. Let me start by just making sure it's clear where I stand on the vaccination. I believe the vaccination is the best way for Virginians and Americans to stay safe. I've been very clear about this. Unfortunately, my opponent has been telling untruths about me. I'm an engineer by training. I believe in science, and I see the real benefits of the vaccination in keeping people safe. In fact, I'm the only candidate who has been running public service announcements, imploring people to please get the vaccine. I also believe that there's a lot of fear with regards to the vaccine, and yes, some misunderstanding. And therefore, I don't believe that we mandate that people should take the vaccine, and it's incumbent upon government and me as governor to, in fact, provide all the necessary information and to really help people understand the benefits of the vaccine. Now, this is where I need your help, because I do believe that particularly in Black communities and Black communities that have a terrible under-vaccination rate, the best spokesperson may not be me. It may, in fact, be you. And so I want to recruit ambassadors, and I will put funding and support behind ambassadors to make sure that the benefits of the vaccine are clearly understood, that the vaccine is available and accessible, not something that requires someone to have to travel far and make appointments and potentially step out of work, or worse yet, leave their child unattended to go get. So we have real work to do to make the vaccine available, to make it well understood, the benefits of it. And this is where I think we must go to work. The current administration was ranked 50th in the country in the vaccine rollout, 50th. And I think the legacy of that terrible start at getting the vaccine out is something that we are all suffering from today. So again, I look forward to going to work with this group and many others. There's a wonderful group called Women of Praise that's working in Prince William County, that's received funding to help get the vaccine information out and make the vaccine readily available. I think we should quadruple down on these efforts. Again, I think the vaccine's the best way to keep people safe. I look forward to educating people on the merits of the vaccine and making it accessible. I don't think mandating it, and as my opponent said, making people's life difficult. Those are the words he used. Making people's life difficult who may not understand the full benefits of the vaccine, rather than working hard to help folks understand the benefit and making it available. I think this is about being a compassionate leader, but also leading. And I think I can go work here with all of you to increase vaccination rates and keep Virginians safe.
Thank you.
Good evening, candidate Youngkin. Thank you for joining us today. If elected governor, what are your plans to provide incentives for businesses to extend paid family leave for absences due to COVID-19?
So thank you for this question. And I know that so many of you are in fact business leaders, own your own business, and understand what it means to take care of your employees. I struggle with mandating this, not because I don't think it's the right thing to do, but I worry about the excessive mandates that have been placed on small businesses over the course of the last 18 months, not to mention the last 8 years. We've watched small business, in fact, suffer. We've watched small businesses go out of business. 25% of the businesses in Virginia over the course of the last 15 months closed permanently or closed for an extended period of time. And we're still seeing businesses closed. And yet I recognize the reality of making sure that our employees across Virginia have the ability to go get the vaccine when they want to go get it. And should they be unfortunately struck down by the virus, that they have time to recover from it without losing their job or losing their wages. I think today with the employment situation that we have in Virginia, whereas you all probably well know that we have the lowest level of labor participation in Virginia that we've ever had since the stats have been kept, as good bosses, as good owners, as good managers, I know that small business owners and all business owners are doing everything they can to attract and retain their employees. So I think step one here as governor is I'm going to encourage everyone to, in fact, expand benefits to make sure that they are, in fact, providing this kind of leave coverage for people who are struck down with the virus. I think second of all, there's a moment here to, in fact, let businesses do what I think businesses should do. And this is where I think government needs to get to, which is to not constantly feel like we have to tell everybody what to do all the time, but in fact, sometimes expect the best out of people. And as a great business leader once told me, bad business owners make bad decisions, and therefore they won't be business owners for long. So I think there's an opportunity here to let business owners lead too. But finally, and I want to go back to a comment I made earlier in my start, there may be a better answer here that I haven't contemplated. And this is one of the topics that I hope we can get a chance to sit down and I can hear from you as business owners, what you would support, what you would want to see happen. And I just want to make sure that we're serving Virginians with the input from leaders like all of you on this Zoom call. So again, I don't believe I have all the perfect answers by any means. And therefore I look forward to that discussion so that we in fact can chart a course where Virginians are better served. And particularly Black women and Black girls who in fact may need in fact more time because they have been exposed and haven't gotten the vaccine because we haven't been successful. So again, I do believe that I think we should lead. We should strongly encourage. I don't believe we should mandate, but I am open to discuss this with input from all of you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, candidate Youngkin.
Good evening.
If elected governor, what are your plans to assist Black women who are living with mental illness impacted or aggravated by the stress of COVID due to job loss, loss of medical insurance, and financial hardship?
Yes. Well, studies have shown that Black women particularly have suffered disproportionately during the pandemic from mental health challenges. They've also shown that Black women have seen their families suffer disproportionately from financial hardship during the pandemic. So we have work to do. We have work to do. And I break this down into three baskets. First, we have to recognize that people need help. They need help. You know, one of the challenges I think oftentimes, and this has happened in my own faith walk, is that we oftentimes believe that we can pray our way through challenges. And I found in my own church that our church leadership found themselves during the last couple of years almost overwhelmed. Actually, I'm going to remove the word almost, overwhelmed by the degree of real challenges with mental illness, with depression, with suicide contemplation. And so we, in fact, partnered with a faith-based mental counseling firm, a counseling firm, to come in and take up residence in our church to help. What it undermined to me is the reality that professional services to provide mental health counseling are critical. And removing the stigma that many people have in seeking help is step one. And therefore, we have to go to work making it available information-wise that it's okay to get help. And it is not a signal of weakness or a lack of faith in my own faith walk. But second of all, we have to make sure that that access is available. Again, my opponent says that I would get rid of the Medicaid expansion. It's just not true. Medicaid was expanded. I believe that the opportunity that Medicaid expansion has provided is to help lots of people get insurance. I think the sad part about Medicaid expansion is that it might take people's eye off the ball in creating job opportunities to help people find great jobs and great careers so that, in fact, they could potentially come off Medicaid and move into private insurance. One of the things that I've seen during the pandemic is that people want jobs. They want careers. They want hope. My wife and I last year started an organization called the Virginia Ready Initiative. In the middle of the pandemic, we saw so many people losing their jobs. And so we partnered with businesses across Virginia in the community college system to enable folks who had lost their jobs to go get a credential. It takes 6 to 12 weeks, and there are tens of thousands of jobs available that are in high growth industries that are careers. We raised $10 million in 10 weeks from businesses and private individuals. And when someone finishes, they receive a $1,000 bonus for finishing and job opportunities. We've seen participation swell to over thousands of people doing this. And in fact, the minority populations and women are the largest users of this opportunity. So to go back, there are three big issues here, I think. One, we have to remove the stigma of seeking help. Second of all, we have to make sure the help is there. And when someone loses their job, Medicaid is there, and we should go to work to expand coverage so that mental health services are more comprehensively funded. And finally, we have to go to work to create opportunities with jobs for those that may have suffered financial hardship. And we can take the Virginia Ready Initiative concept and expand it across Virginia to help people find new opportunity. And as governor, this is where I'll spend my time to support, yes, Black women and Black girls who are suffering disproportionately from financial hardship and the challenges of potential mental illness that might go with it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. We're going to give you an opportunity to expand on mental health. If elected governor, what are your plans to ensure Black women and girls have access to psychiatric and mental health services?
Yeah, so thank you, because this is a bit of a continuation of the previous question. And let me dive into two aspects in more detail. First of all, while there are services provided under many insurance plans, many of Virginia's insurance plans, including Medicaid, that cover what I would call severe mental illness. It's not comprehensive. And in fact, we have yet to really embrace the technological opportunity that we're all sharing right here, which is telemedicine and telecounseling. And so I think in order to expand access, we first have to expand services covered in Virginia's insurance plans. And I'm going to go to work on that, including Medicaid. But second of all, we in fact are having a mental health crisis in Virginia today. And it's been here for years and years and years. In fact, my opponent, when he was running for governor in 2009 and 2013, identified it as a problem. We didn't do anything about it. So as part of my day one plan, I actually have highlighted investing substantial funds, $150 million in Virginia's mental health system to rescue it from the crisis we're in. At one point, five of the eight Virginia-run state hospitals were closed to new admittance. We have an adolescent facility that only has less than 20 of its beds available. And that is caused not by a lack of rooms, but a lack of professional staffing. So we've got to recruit and pay better so that we have better resources. I think this is absolutely one of the biggest challenges and most acute crises in Virginia today. And if we don't recognize that this pandemic where we've seen fear and anxiety, we've seen loneliness, we've actually seen financial challenges be amplified to a degree we can't imagine. We've got real work to go do. This can't be lip service. You know, my world of business, if people make promises to do things and don't do it, you get fired. And this is one of the top areas that I've been focusing on and rolling out of my day one game plan, where we're going to go to work right out of the box, is to invest heavily in our mental health system to make sure that the community service boards have funding. The community service boards actually have standards so that we get equal support across Virginia. And we can make a big difference going forward in providing the support for all Virginians, and particularly Black women and Black girls.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
If elected governor, candidate Youngkin, what are your plans to invest in high quality education for Black girls?
So of all the topics we're going to discuss tonight, I am hoping I can borrow a minute or two into this answer. Because Virginia's education system, I believe, has failed all families, but particularly our Black community. Over the course of the last 8 years, we've watched the expectations that we demand from our schools and from our students be watered down substantially. And I think that has provided such a disservice to all of Virginia's kids, but we've seen it most acute in the Black community. My opponent, when he was governor, saw 88 schools not receive their accreditation. And rather than do the hard work and fix them, they lowered the standards required for accreditation so that not one would fail. And that is not right for our schools. Our schools must be measured. We must understand the ones that are working and the ones that aren't working so we can go to work to fix them. But on top of that, they lowered the standards for our children to progress. They lowered the standards that our children should have to achieve in order to graduate. And that has worked so terribly against our kids. Today, Virginia is ranked 50th in the country in standards to progress in reading and in math, 50th. And we're the only state to receive a below standard rating in these expectations. That has resulted in Virginia's kids falling way behind. The numbers are staggering. Today in Virginia, over 55% of white children can't pass an 8th grade equivalency math test, and over 70% of Latino children. But what's most shocking is over 80% of Black children today can't. The disparity between the numbers is totally unacceptable. The absolute numbers shock the conscience. We can't prepare our children to live their dreams, to chase the things that they aspire to do, if we aren't preparing them for life, preparing them to go to college or be career ready. So I'm going to go to work on day one, absolutely on day one. This is a big part of my agenda on day one. First, we're going to keep our schools open. Last year, when our schools closed, my opponent said nothing. And our schools were closed unnecessarily, in my view, for an extended period of time. We can actually maintain the safety of our school and keep them open. It's imperative that we do so. Second of all, I'll preside over the largest education budget in the history of Virginia. We're going to increase teacher pay because it must be increased. We underpay our teachers. We're going to invest in our crumbling schools. We're going to invest in special education like never before because those children have absolutely been disproportionately affected. And then we're going to hold our schools accountable for delivering results, and those that aren't, we're going to go work hard with. We're going to establish expectations that, in fact, our kids can do well, not that they'll do poorly. Two other topics, if I may. I believe one of the bigger challenges in our public school systems today is families don't have any choice whatsoever. And I believe charter schools offer a great opportunity within the public school system. So I've announced a plan to launch 20 innovation charter schools on day one. Virginia only has 8 charter schools in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. North Carolina has 190. Maryland has over 140. And Virginia families deserve a chance to make a choice. Our first 20 charter schools, by the way, I call them innovation charter schools because we're partnering with universities. And I've already started working with Hampton University on what this can look like, and with businesses to help train our young folks with skills and the knowledge they need to be either college ready or career ready. And I'm focusing on those school districts that have been most underperforming because they need the most help. This will not take any funds away from the school districts. We'll add money to it. And this is how we're going to bring up the education standards and the expectations for excellence across Virginia. Let me make one final comment. I'm sorry, I know I'm going a bit long here. But I think one of the challenges is our curriculum as well. And if I could tell you a quick story, I am a middle-aged white man, but I understand that racism exists. When I was the CEO of Carlisle, the co-CEO of Carlisle, I hosted listening sessions from all Carlisle employees for people to tell their stories about biases and racism that they had experienced. We would usually have 500 or 600 people participate in these sessions and listen. Many of it brought tears to your eyes. I was often very much heartened by the fact that the stories didn't have to do with Carlisle, but they had to do with people's life experiences. And so please don't misunderstand me. I do believe racism exists. And I have an aspiration as a governor to make Virginia welcoming, accepting, and to make sure that no discrimination exists. But I worry about the curriculum that has been pushed into many of our schools, by the way, with not misguided aspirations, in fact, to make sure that we're teaching real history, all of it, the bad, the good, the abhorrent chapters that make up Virginia and America's history. But I worry that we're doing everything to teach our children to view everything through a lens of race. And that worries me because young people, they have dreams. And to be told that their dreams are going to be harder to obtain because they're going to have the deck stacked against them, or that their dreams are going to be easier to obtain because the deck is stacked for them, I believe just underserves our kids. So I want to move forward with changes to our curriculum, where again, we do not airbrush. We teach truth, and we work together to make sure that biases and racism are clearly identified when they exist. But we also don't teach our children that everything has to be viewed through a lens of race. And that's why I think critical race theory, as it's described, can be amended, and we can come up with different ways to have a curriculum that prepares all of our children, but particularly as we see what has been happening, particularly to the Black children in Virginia, where we've just seen academic performance deteriorate. We've got to go to work. And again, I look forward to surrounding myself with the most knowledgeable academics, the most knowledgeable parents, the most knowledgeable teachers and students, so that we can get this done. So thank you for giving me a few extra minutes there.
All right, thank you so much for your candid answers.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hello.
So our last question of the evening is related to voting. Briefly, with the current changes to gerrymandering happening in Black areas, if elected governor, what are your plans to ensure that women still have access to their votes?
Yes, well, I think this issue is not a partisan issue at all. And in fact, each party, and again, I can say this because up until 8 months ago, I wasn't a politician running for office. And yes, I know I am now. But I don't think this issue is a Republican issue, and I don't think this issue is a Democrat issue. I think this is a democracy issue for us. We have to ensure everyone have access to vote who's legally able to vote. It's what makes America great. In fact, one of the things I was struck by is when we saw the protests in Cuba, and you may know that our Attorney General running mate, Jason Miyares, is a first generation Cuban born from his mother. They were carrying American flags because they wanted a chance to vote. And when I speak with our Lieutenant Governor candidate, Winsome Sears, she speaks about what she sees different in America versus where she was born in Jamaica, and how she sees everyone think about opportunities. And so protecting everyone's right to vote is really important. I think in order to do that, we have to invest in our voting system. And forgive me, but I approach this as a business person. When we have processes that may not be, in fact, engendering the trust that they need to engender, we should invest in them. And I think we can invest in our election system. We can invest to make sure that the voting rolls are updated, because they did not get updated, and they should be. And I think that's appropriate. I think we can invest to make sure that mail-in ballots are, in fact, applied for appropriately and submitted appropriately and counted appropriately. I think we can invest in the voting machines so that they're tested before and tested after, and that's made public for everyone. In fact, that's what happened in this last election in Virginia. We had an audit afterwards, and the audit said that there wasn't any material fraud. I think we can ask Virginians to show up with a photo ID to vote. I think we ask Virginians to show up with a photo ID to vote when they check into a hotel. Photo ID when they check into a hotel or get a library card or board an airplane. I think we should make it very accessible and affordable for people to get a photo ID. I don't believe that anyone that can't get to a DMV or can't afford a photo ID should be precluded from getting one. We should absolutely make sure that happens. But I also think we should respect all Virginians' ability to have the wherewithal to get a photo ID. I think finally, my opponent has said things about me that just so are not true. And I've been very clear. I've acknowledged that Joe Biden was legitimately elected our president, that he's in the White House, he's passing executive orders, he is the president. My opponent, in fact, in the year 2000, said over and over and over again that George W. Bush was not legitimately elected the president. And in fact, that election was stolen, and he has never, ever acknowledged that he disagreed with those sentiments he expressed back then. I hope that one thing we've been able to do tonight is gain an appreciation that, and I'm not a politician. I believe in telling the truth. I believe in bearing my heart to what I believe in. And I look forward to working with all Virginians, and particularly people that have a specific interest in a topic. I have folks that approach me every day that say, I have a particular expertise in healthcare. I take their name and say, let's sit down. I have a particular expertise in transportation, and let's sit down. I have a particular expertise in education. I have a particular expertise in how to preserve our environment. And so for those of you on this call that have a particular expertise that you think might be very informative to how, if I'm fortunate enough and blessed enough to go work for all of you as the next governor of Virginia, I so welcome it, because I think together we are much stronger. And I think together we can make Virginia the best place in America to live and work and raise a family. So again, thank you for letting me join you this evening. And I do hope this is just chapter 1. And I hope the chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are ones where we're sitting around a table and I've got a pad of paper and I'm listening to you. So again, I hope you have a blessed evening. I hope you have had a blessed Sunday. And again, I look forward to going to work for all of you if I'm fortunate enough to do it, because this is the way I view this. I'm going to go work for you. It's not a title to be had or a house to be won. It's a job that needs to be done, and I'm prepared to go serve. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Youngkin. That wraps up our final session. We would like to thank all the candidates for taking the time to participate in this much needed dialogue to educate voters. Just a few reminders before Sister Lisa Storr comes to the stage with closing remarks. Please be on the lookout for our anonymous survey. Please support us by hitting the send button after you complete the survey. We hope you have been presented with the information needed to help you in making your decision-making process and who will receive your vote on November 2nd. Now, please welcome Sister Lisa Storr as she gives the closing remarks.
Thank you, everyone. What an exciting evening we have had. We have heard from 3 really great candidates with great information, a wealth of information that hopefully address some of your concerns, especially pertaining to Black girls and Black women in the areas of education, economic empowerment, political, and health awareness. Now, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate all of the time that you've taken to spend with us, and we look forward to seeing you at additional National Coalition of Black Women events. Look out for our survey. Make sure you complete it and you hit the send button. We appreciate you. Have a great evening.